morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Positude podcast. I'm your host, Maggie Hart. So happy and thankful to be here with you for another week, discussing important topics and spreading positivity and having a conversation just like we would sitting on the sofa in our living room over a cup of coffee or hot chocolate. The weather's getting a little nippier here on the eastern seaboard. Still, though, no snow. No signs of snow. Must be the libs were right and we're experiencing global warming or possibly weather modification. Before we get right into it, I wanted to share an interesting story that happened to me the other day. Because I've been driving so much, I've been struggling to find different things to listen to. And so I decided to sign up for a library app called Libby. And I went in and put my library card information into their database and was all excited to get in there so that I could find hopefully some new free audiobooks to listen to just for something different during the drive. Because a lot of my time is spent in reflection and meditation and thinking and planning. And sometimes I listen to videos and interviews to see what else is going on and what everybody else is talking about. And sometimes it gives me ideas for my shows and just generally broadening my awareness of what's going on. And a lot of times I learn new things while I'm driving, listening to different podcasts or YouTube videos. And sometimes I listen to music and sometimes I listen to audiobooks. And so I thought, well, let me just see what's on there. This is super exciting. And I had to call the library because I didn't know what my password was and I needed a password to get into Libby. And apparently it's just the last four numbers of my phone number. Who knew? So after the librarian educated me on that, I got into the app and I started scrolling around and I picked literally 4 titles of books that looked interesting to me. And folks, every single book, every single one, which had what I would have thought were more conservative and religious titles, every single one of them, in a very short period of time of me starting to listen to them, had a liberal spin. And they fooled me with the titles because I'm like, oh, this looks cool, this looks good, I'll try this one. And then, so I kind of got a little bit, Switch to the next one. Are you kidding me? Switch to the third one. Switch to the fourth one. And I was like, okay, seriously. I know from being closely connected with the library system and working with kids and adults that utilize the library for entertainment in the bad weather, elderly folks, disabled folks. Increasingly, I've noticed the amount of liberal books that are appearing on the shelves in the LGBTQ and all of that. And everybody knows about the classic books that are being taken down and taken away and burnt in some cases. But I guess I really didn't realize how bad it was because even encroaching into areas that I would not have anticipated being liberal, every one of those audio tapes, so after the first 4 times I kind of gave up on it and said, okay, moving on, I'll find something else to listen to in the car. I am in shock at how deep it's gotten and how immersed. There was a book about spirituality and nature, and within the first 5 minutes, she was talking about climate change. The second book really looked interesting. It was about how to tell media bullshit. And bullshit was actually one of the words in the title. And about 3 minutes in, it started to talk about Hillary Clinton and Pizzagate and how it was all phony. And it was basically picking on all of us good old-fashioned conspiracy theorists. And I'm like, you know what? I can get that from my family around the dinner table on the holidays. I really don't need to listen to this on an audiobook as I'm driving down the road. So I clicked that one off. And yeah, it's pretty bad out there. And watch what your kids are listening to and the values that they're learning. Because if they're teenagers and they're into this type of stuff, the titles are very misleading. There's a whole lot of brainwashing going on. And you might say to me, oh, my child would never listen to something like that. Well, I was that kid. I was learning about everything I could get my hands on as a teenager. A very varied reading collection and healing, self-help, politics, sports, religion, you name it, I went there. The second 2 books were a little more subtle, and that's why I say that, because if you're really not versed in a topic, you may not pick up on the subtle nuances. What's happened to all of the conservative writings out there? Why aren't they on this app? It's just like everything else. It's been infiltrated and taken over, and maybe it started out as a liberal app. Who knows? But either way, I'm hoping the current administration and the change of regime helps to bring back common sense. And, I don't care if they have all those other books out there for every other genre or every other political spectrum, but at least give me what I want to. Make it fair. And that's been one of my biggest complaints all along. And I know that some of you share the same opinion and desire is, make it fair. If you're going to put your stuff out there, give us equal platform. Make half the books something that conservatives would enjoy. Something that somebody that has morals would enjoy. Anyway, that's enough of my soapbox for today. I don't want to go all Corey Feldman on you. Just kidding. Do you even know what I mean by that? I grew up with Corey Feldman. I loved his movies. And he's been through so much. And he's done his expose on his friend Corey and outed a lot of the stuff that goes on in Hollywood and all of the terrible things that are done to childhood actors. And I give him so much credit for doing all of that. But obviously, it's affected his psyche. I think he's a great comedian still. I've listened to a couple of his podcasts or parts of them, and I think he does the most amazing Stallone impression. He's a comedian and he's an actor, and I feel that he should stay in his zone because I love music, and I'm guessing that on YouTube you can pay for shorts. I'm not really sure. I think that's how it works, but all of a sudden I'm seeing all of these YouTube shorts on Corey Feldman, the comeback king, and I think that most of the hits that he's getting on those are most likely people laughing at him and teasing him behind his back, because I can't see any reason. As much as you love him as an actor, as much as I love him as an actor, listening to him sing and his, what he calls guitar riffs, are absolutely horrendous. It's just horrible quality music. He has no vocal range. Guitar riffs are like something a third grader would, and the facial expressions as he does them, as though he's Eddie Van Halen up on stage. It's so sad to see, because he's been through so much. And I can feel his pain and his suffering, and I work with people like that, and I've had relationships with people that have been through so many personal struggles that I understand that he's got this music dream that he wants to grasp onto, but Cora, it's not happening. Give up the ghost. It's delusional. But unfortunately, we see that a lot with people that have been through mental struggles, right? One thing I will say is this, and he absolutely imitates Michael Jackson's dance moves, even kind of dresses like him with the sequins and the sparkles and the glitter, and that's another thing. And he changes costumes more times in his concert than probably Taylor Swift. There's so much of our percentage. Well, let me go back and be positive about this. Stay in your lane, Core, because what you do, like your interviews that I've heard and your imitations and all of that, you're like a funny guy, and you're charismatic and you're charming and you have great stories to tell, and just stay in your lane, dude. And if you do that and you know how to do that, I think it'll take you a lot farther. Because one thing I noticed at his concerts is they didn't, at least a couple that I listened to, they didn't pan the crowd. So to me, it was somewhat like a Joe Biden re-election campaign run, or a Kamala re-election. Did I just say re-erection? Oh boy, that's a Freudian slip. Is she a man too? Uh-oh. I bet. Anyway, it's possible. Anything's possible now, but I know she's not what she says she is. And most of you know that too. But anyway, I feel for him, and I think he's a great actor, but he needs to stay out of music. Why am I talking about Corey? Because it's a lead-in. It's a perfect example for part of what I want to discuss tonight. And I know that with the rise in the COVID jab and the people that have taken it and the chemtrails and the 5G and the meds that people are on nowadays, I'm seeing an increase in delusional people, delusional behaviors. Boy, it just keeps getting better and better, doesn't it, folks? Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water again, here comes Jaws. This is very troublesome, as much as I'm trying to make light of it. And oh, by the way, I am raw and uncut this week. I've been working on very little sleep and been under a lot of emotional strain. And I am just shooting from the hip today and being my happy-go-lucky, off-the-cuff self. And so, and I'm actually in a really good mood, even though there are a lot of people that would like for me not to be in a very good mood, probably, and be miserable. I can't live there. I can't stay there. And so I'm just me being me, and I'm not being as professional as I normally would be. And that's okay, because part of being authentic is for you guys to really get the whole picture of who I am. And this is me, the light, playful, funny side, and the shoot from the hip qualities. That's part of who I am, and it's important to be able to share that with you. Just like I wish I could get so much more feedback from all of you and get to know your qualities and personalities a little bit better. What do you like, and what do you do in your free time? And the reason is we need to build more community spirit, and we need to stick together, because it seems like every week I'm discovering or encountering another detrimental side effect or quality or environmental concern for our society. And I know that a lot of you are going through the same things. You're struggling with the same stuff. So we need to stick together. I was listening to a guy talk about, it was a governmental guy, and he was talking about a brain issue that he had. And he found a miraculous cure for not only his seizures and his brain disease, but it also restored his brain health. It healed what was wrong with him. The guy's name is Chase Hughes, and he's an expert. Part of his bio on the podcast that I listened to says he is the U.S. government's brainwashing and interrogation expert, training the intelligence agencies. He's a neuroscientist and the world's #1 human behavior expert. You may have heard of him. The way things go with me is I pray and I meditate on things, and this video showed up in my suggested list, which is a lot of times the case when I'm struggling with something or trying to find content for my shows. I pray and meditate, and honestly, when I came across this video, I had just earlier in the day had a pretty significant experience with a person that has narcissistic tendencies. And we all know what narcissists do, or people with narcissistic tendencies do. They try and flip everything around on you and blame you, and it's never their fault, and it's always your fault. And they never take the blame for their own atrocities, and they basically try to beat you down and make you feel as though you are the bad person. Part of this is, no, all of this is due to mental rehabilitation and issues that the person is having inside of themselves. Narcissists are sick people. They need help. And being empathic and being a healer, these people seem to be drawn into my life. And I listened to this guy's interview, and you know what? He said it. Finally, somebody said it, that the percentage of people out there that are pathological and have these mental conditions is prevalent in society. Now, he might not have put it in exactly those words, but he gave an example of people in a crowd watching an atrocity in public, a person being robbed or beaten, and all of the people were filming it rather than coming to the aid of their fellow human. And just like with narcissists and gaslighting, it is so prevalent, and it's on the rise. It's been on the rise. It's been steadily increasing to, in my opinion, the point where the numbers are rising so exponentially that we're rapidly approaching a point, in my opinion, where these people are dead even and even surpassing normalcy, the conditions that these people are struggling and suffering with. And while I have a degree of compassion and a lot of compassion for people that are struggling with mental issues, and knowing that a lot of this is something that has been placed upon our society because of the environmental things, the shot, the 5G, the chemtrails, the foods that we eat, the vaccinations that our children are forced to have put into their bodies, all of that. I know why it happens, but you know something, folks, as good as I am, and I don't mean to sound egotistical when I say that, but let me put it another way. Because of the experiences that I've had in dealing with people that struggle with certain issues, I should know better, but there are still days and instances where I allow my free will, I allow certain people to get under my skin. I'm still not at that guru level with patience. As good as I think I am, there are still times and instances where people can push my buttons and get under my skin and hurt me and bother me. And I'm not ashamed to say that, because we're all human. We're all on our own separate journeys. And I want to be authentic with you. If I said that I was perfect, and I said that I could heal everybody, and I said that I was totally immune to humans every single day, all day long, and their fallibilities, as well as my being susceptible to human emotion, I'd be lying, and that's not what I'm about. But anyway, somebody got under my skin, and this just happened to pop up in my feed because I know my gifts. I'm very aware of, and I have a great deal of confidence in the gifts that were given to me from above, because they've served me so well for so long. And they're a part of me. They've never lied to me. They've never done me wrong. They've never misled me. So, but I was having a weak moment, and I was being gaslighted. And this video popped up right at the point that I had a brief moment of questioning myself. And I think it's important that we do self-evaluations from time to time. I do them on a regular basis. In fact, just last night, I was speaking to someone, and the night before, I was getting the opinions of people that had known me for years, and I said, look, it's my self-evaluation time, and something happened and has been happening, and I need your opinion. Is my memory failing? Have you known me to be a certain way, a way that I had been accused of being or acting by somebody that was trying to gaslight me, by somebody with narcissistic tendencies now, by somebody that's struggling with some mental debilitation? And the general consensus was, no, are you kidding me? It's not you at all. And you know this. Come on, you know this. You're in the field. You know that people do this. You know that when people are suffering from mental struggles, they do these things. Why are you questioning yourself? Because I think it's important. I want to stay on track, and I want to make sure that it's not me. Because if it's something that's inside of me that's skewered, then I need to work on that. Because I can't help all of you if I'm not. Let me rephrase that. We all have struggles. Nobody's perfect. But I can't be as effective as a counselor, as a healer, as a friend, as a mom, as a lover, as a person, as a whatever, co-worker, peer, whatever, if I'm not serving myself to the best of my ability. It's important that I do these self-evaluations, and it keeps me on a real level. And it prevents me from, ego things are a struggle for everybody. I feel like I'm past a lot of that, but the ego can still creep in at times. So, and that's a tool of the dark side. So I go through regular clearings. People pray over me on a regular basis because I deal with the dark forces so much, and I work with people that I'm trying to clear of these entities, and they do jump. And as long as I've been in the field and as much work as I've done, I'm not stupid enough to think that I'm totally immune to attack. I'm under attack a lot of the time, so much of the time. And the reason for that is because of the work that I do, and because of the help that I give people, and because I'm over the target a lot of the time. And it's not just me, it's anybody that's in this quote unquote movement. It's anybody that's trying to educate people. It's anybody that's trying to help people, especially at this turning point that we're at on this planet. We're all under attack, spiritual attack. Different varying degrees, sometimes more intense than others. Sometimes it's particularly with a person that we're dealing with because of their issues and because they're so potent and you're really wanting to save that soul. So the attacks are harder and faster. Boy, it's not easy being us right now, is it, folks? But we need to stick together, and we need to support each other, and we need to stay strong because we know that we're doing the good work. We're fighting the good fight, and we can't let anything deter us, anything. And what the podcast made me understand is it brought me back to balance, and I'm like, yep, I knew this. I know that this type of thing is on the rise, and I know that the dark forces want to defeat the people that are trying to do good in this world and that are saving souls and all of that. And so this video was through DRVN podcast, and the first video that I watched from this guy, the title is Government Brainwashing Expert on How to Spot Lies and Influence Anyone. Chase Hughes is the government guy's name, and the DRVN podcast host is Leon Hendricks. He's a German guy, and apparently, I don't know, something happened. It's his second station, and he's got tons of fans. I'd never listened to him, but like I said, matter of prayer, and this popped up because I was questioning myself there for a minute, and I'm like, hey, I know some psychological tricks to be able to read people as well as my empathic side and just my spidey senses. But let me listen to this. Maybe I can glean some information out of here. I'm guided to watch this video. There's something in here that I need to see. And what I learned was, what I told you that, yeah, it's a lot worse out there than we want to think or maybe want to believe as far as the amount of mental illness that's out there, people doing psychopathic things, psychopathic behaviors among others, but also this guy does a segment about his brain illness and the drug natural supplement that he took to heal it. And I wanted to share that with you. The reason that I want to share that with you is if you go to that podcast, there's a breakdown. And if you go to the 1 minute 15 mark, he starts to talk about his brain disease and then the cure that he used. And it's a product called methylene blue. And apparently it's been out for centuries, but the patent has expired on it, and it's very reasonable on Amazon. Now, I don't know if it's the same quality of the stuff that he's taking, but if you go to that interview, there are a ton of links for him underneath that. He gives the link to how he gets it. It looks like it's a $10 membership to get into that site to be able to purchase the same one that he has. And he did a medical paper on the methylene blue protocol that he uses for his mom to be able to take to the doctor. And he put it up there for other people to be able to utilize, which I thought was very kind of him. So he discovered it, and his specific protocol is from Dr. John Lawrence, but I'm unsure of the spelling, from Sarasota, Florida. And as I said, there's a link on there. It looks like you've got to pay a $10 membership to get onto the link to his page, but they do sell the methylene blue on Amazon, but you need to do your research and make sure that it's the same potency and all of that. Now, Chase's protocol through Dr. Lawrence also involved taking a 200 milligram dose of melatonin in the form of an enema, which, according to him, helped even further to get him better. He claims that not only did it cure his seizures and his brain issues, but that his cells have been healed. He's got not only better memory, but he claims overall his physical health and his moods also have improved. So I wanted to share that with everybody, and I am looking at it as a very viable option for my family that is suffering from some short-term memory issues and possibly some symptoms of early onset dementia and Alzheimer's and potentially some Parkinson's, because firstly, things are shown to me for a reason, and that video was brought to my attention, I think, for two reasons. Number one, to let me know and give me some reinforcement that I am okay mentally, and it's not me that's struggling with some of these issues, but somebody else that has some narcissistic tendencies. And then also as a way to be able to help my family. But furthermore, people, like we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, have been struggling with things like short-term memory. We're seeing rises in these eye diseases, we're seeing rises in tinnitus, we're seeing rises in Parkinson's, we're seeing rises in neurological issues that we know are as a result of the chemtrailing, the 5G, and the stuff in our food. So this is something that I think would be beneficial to everybody overall. When I listened to this man's testimony, it resonated with me very strongly. I heard the name and I just felt really good about this product. So I wanted to pass that along to all of you because I think it's something that potentially could help all of us, just like the cleansing of the toxins from our bodies, just like the prayer that we do, just like all of the little things that we're trying to do to combat what's being thrown at us by the dark side. I feel as though this could potentially be one of the most important, if not the most important, substance that we put in our toolbox to help not only strengthen our memory, but to be able to have that recall And who knows, maybe as the product works and the cells are healed, it may be also a way to insulate us from the toxins that continue to be, at least at this point, rained down on us literally and metaphorically. The other thing that I found about this product to be amazing is he claims that there are no side effects. That interview has a lot of great points. After he talks about his brain issues and his treatment, he talks about what he perceives to be the 3 signs of societal collapse, and it was a paper that he made, I think it was for the government like 5 years ago. Very interesting chart there. I screenshotted it. I suggest you do as well. Then he talks about breaking out of the simulation, although not the simulation as we know it traditionally. He's got an interesting take on that as well. And I was so impressed with this guy that I actually listened to another interview by him by the same host after that, and he's got a lot to bring to the table. I find his work very interesting and fascinating, and he's continually going back to college and educating himself even further in his neuroscientist type studies, which I think is very commendable. If nothing else, he's worth listening to just for his expertise in his knowledge of personality profiling and the work that he's done with the government, but he's also coaching people privately. Apparently he's done some pretty famous people. So overall, it's a good listen. I'm going to take a short break right now. When we come back, I'm going to talk about dopamine, because I think it all ties into some of the challenges that we're facing today on the planet. And although you may have heard about it, I'd like to give you some information that you may not be privy to, or at least put my perspective on things and see what you think about that. Thanks all for listening to the Positude podcast. I am your host, Maggie Hart. You can reach me for all your spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional needs at Maggie, MAGGIE_Hart, HEART, at Outlook.com. Please support the station. We are totally listener funded, and we depend on and are so appreciative of your donations. Please check out the main page. You might find other shows that you're interested in listening to, and check out the chat room. And if you want to be a superstar and you have your own business, please consider putting a commercial on our network and sponsoring us. It's a great way to promote yourself and let everybody know that you're on the right side of the tracks. If you don't have your own commercial, please contact the owner, and I'm sure he and the producer would be thrilled to give you a commercial that you can be proud of. Whether it be on my show or any other show on the network, please consider supporting us. The music for my show is provided by my good buddy Pat Carr for my intro and exit, and a lot of times for my break music as well. Pat's an amazing original artist from Louisiana. He is on SoundClick, he's on Reverb Nation, he's on YouTube, he is all over the place. You can reach him at http://www.itunes.com/Pat Carr. Please check him out. Tell him Maggie sent you, and support him for being such a wonderful guy and a great musician. As an aside, if any of you out there know how to build a quality website, this has been a struggle of mine for several years now. I seem to get into the process and people agree to build my site or offer to build my site. And many months and years later, I still don't have a finalized site. It's something that I've needed and wanted for a long time, and unfortunately or fortunately, the universe has a way of giving me messages, and it doesn't appear as though the one that had been supposedly in the works is going to be completed at this time anyway. And although I positively love the site that I have now, unfortunately, the girl who designed it for me has all of the control over it, and I don't want to pursue that anymore because there's so much more that I need to add to it, And should she choose to not pay to license it anymore, it would be defunct. And it's a lot of work and a lot of effort and time and many years of work that have gone into the things that I want to put up there. And it would just be a shame to put it all up there and have it get lost. So just throwing that out there. If anybody's interested, please get a hold of me, because it's something that I need, and it really needs to be my vision of what I want for my page. So if you have issues with creative control and you want to design the page your way and not be open to listening to what it is that I need and what I'm trying to accomplish, please don't contact me because I have a vision of what I need to portray, and it's important to me. And I just looking for something specific and somebody who will actually listen to my needs and not just build me a page based on what they like. And that's been the struggle the last 2 times. People aren't hearing me, they're not listening to me, and they're attempting to build a page that they like or they think will work. But I know what's best for me. And I know what I want and I know what I like. And if it's going to be my site, it needs to be something that I'm proud of. Enough said on that. We'll be back after the break. Thank you for joining me for the second half of the Positude podcast. I'm your host, Maggie Hart. Please reach me at Maggie, MAGGIE _Hart, HEART, for all your spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional needs. You just heard New Orleans Blues by my good buddy Pat Carr. That is my absolute favorite track on his album. It's incredible. Please support him. So dopamine, let's talk about dopamine. What I feel is that the dopamine hits that we're getting from social media, Instagram, friend likes, all of that, it's artificial. It's not your real dopamine. It's not the dopamine that we were created to have, like watching a sunset or a sunrise or listening to a bird sing. And I think increasingly we are being driven toward these fake dopamine hits for these fake dopamine responses that are lab created, they're not organic, and I think there might be an agenda on a couple of different levels in regards to our dopamine intake. and our dopamine production. The chemicals that are being sprayed down upon us, and also the way that we are getting them. So let me start with that. We know that there is a giant AI agenda. I've talked many times before on previous interviews, on other shows, and also my show about what they'd like to see happen, the bad guys. You know, the Ready Player One scenario where you'll own nothing and be happy, and you're living in a computerized world where you put on your virtual reality headset to travel to Hawaii if you've been a good little boy or girl and received your tokens or your social credit score in order to be able to utilize those programs. And those are going to be meant much like, and I've said this before, the whole metaverse concept. We need to be so careful of that. But that's the way the bad guys would like to lead us, so that if we're doing the right thing, we get access to these computers, to this virtual reality, where because we have no money and they want us to live like in that Ready Player One scenario where we're living in one-room tenements stacked on top of each other. Our only form of pleasure, if it were up to these bad guys, would be to get on the computer and virtually visit your loved ones, or Hawaii, or have an escape route, or create an avatar that portrays who you wish that you were, instead of living real life in real life emotions and experiences. The website LabRoots has a short, 6-minute video on their site called The Effects of Dopamine that I'm going to play for you because it explains what it is better than I could. So please take a listen, and then we'll converse more after that. The video is put out by Body Hub.
What dopamine does to the body. Ever heard of dopamine? There's a good chance of hearing people talk about this chemical. It's typically known as the feel-good neurotransmitter, primarily because of its link to pleasure and reward responses. It's the chemical that's behind our dreams and deepest secrets. So what is dopamine? Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that's synthesized in some regions of the brain from L-dopa. We produce this chemical when we consume foods that contain amino acids, including tyronine and phenylalanine. It's important to note that some symptoms are likely to occur when a person's levels become too high or low. High dopamine levels can lead to schizophrenia and cocaine addiction, while low levels are associated with Parkinson's disease. But the big question is, what are the effects of dopamine? Join us as we explore just about everything you need to know. Dopamine boosts the anticipation of pleasure. First off, whenever we come across a rewarding stimulus, the brain releases more dopamine, and this pushes us to seek out the fun or pleasurable activity. Pleasurable experiences or moments like sex, games, eating tasty foods, and even drugs can stimulate the release of dopamine. It's, however, important to note that dopamine doesn't mediate pleasure. Instead, it enhances the expectation of pleasure in humans. The bottom line, you enjoy most of the pleasurable activities because of dopamine. Dopamine improves memory and learning. The effect of dopamine in the brain helps with memory and learning. Essentially, dopamine is crucial for long-term memory storage and retrieval. What's more, this neurotransmitter reminds you of important events, especially those that have motivational significance. It's also good to point out that dopamine plays a big role in working memory. That's the capacity to use information from short-term memory to guide your actions. Dopamine increases your drive. Also known as the motivation molecule, dopamine gives us the motivational as well as the internal drive to do things. As we know, we usually do things because we find them to be worth it or rewarding. What you should know is that dopamine is the chemical that's responsible for your reward-seeking behavior. Your drive is the result of high dopamine levels. On the flip side, people with low levels of this neurotransmitter are less likely to work for things and care less about the rewards that come afterward. Dopamine controls movement. It's also good to point out that dopamine plays an essential role in movement. How? Well, the basal ganglia, largest and most important sources of dopamine in the brain, is the biggest factor that comes into play here. It actually controls movement. For the most part, the basal ganglia require high levels of dopamine to function optimally. This is just how it works. If limited amounts of dopamine reach the basal ganglia, several different voluntary motions may become uncoordinated. This is especially common in Parkinson's disease. Dopamine increases wakefulness. As humans, we're more likely to stay awake when we have higher levels of dopamine in the brain. This is precisely why you're always active during the day. On the flip side, dopamine levels fall during the night, and melatonin takes over. As you probably guessed, this chemical makes you sleepy. Dopamine processes pain. Besides its role in increasing your urge for exciting experiences, dopamine is also released when you come across unfavorable or sad events, more like when you have an epic argument with your boyfriend or girlfriend. Finally, you should be aware that dopamine has a link to addiction. Excessive intake of drugs can decrease dopaminergic function and eventually increase addiction to drugs.
So earlier in the show, I talked about Parkinson's disease and the seemingly uptick on things like that and early onset dementia. And I think it's directly correlated to what's being put into our environment. There also is the links to addiction, which is something that would behoove the bad guys to have more people addicted to bad substances. Lower levels of dopamine make you less likely to work for things and don't care as much about the rewards. Just like the fluoride in our water, it's meant to make us apathetic and somewhat robotic, less readily available to respond with our emotions if our levels are off. Dopamine improves our memory and learning, and it's crucial for long-term memory storage and retrieval. It reminds you of important events, especially those that have motivational significance. It increases your drive. It's known as the motivation molecule, it says in the video, which gives us the internal and motivational drive to do things, to do stuff. Call me a conspiracy theorist, but decreased organic dopamine levels would help to total further the bad guy's agenda, would it not? And getting you addicted to these robotic ones, these fake dopamine hits, would also further their agenda, like I talked about before the video. Think openly for a moment about the quote-unquote conspiracy theory about the bad guys, i.e. Bill Gates and company, trying to block out the sun. Now knowing that dopamine is received through the sun, your body generates it through sunlight. And if there's not a lot of sunlight, it's going to reduce your dopamine levels. That's what's responsible for SAD, seasonal affective disorder. Think about that. So in reducing our natural body's abilities to create and generate our own dopamine and substituting that with lab-created dopamine to get us addicted to the computers, to the iPhones, to the video games. Gee, that furthers their agenda, doesn't it? And it prohibits your body from getting something that's essential to your well-being and growth, in addition to the fact that so many people are struggling with these memory issues, short-term memory issues. They're having what appears to be Parkinson's type symptoms. Do you see where I'm going with all of this? We know that the bad guys are trying to deny our bodies of anything that's good for us, of any of the systems that were put in place by our creative force, by Father, by the universe, whatever you choose to believe. They are trying to deprive us of those things. They are trying to sedate us so that we don't have thoughts of our own, or we don't have the energy or the mental capacity to think on our own and clearly and retain what we've learned. This is another reason that it's essential, as much as you can, to get out and ground in nature, get off of technology, get out of the 5G environment, use the protective measures that we've talked about on previous shows to alleviate toxins from your body, both environmentally and from the food that you put into your body, and to find ways to protect yourselves and your families holistically. So, what are some ways that we can naturally increase dopamine in the body? And if we're addicted to technology and the fake dopamine, what are some dangers of having too much of that dopamine in our system? Some of the dangers are trouble sleeping, aggressive behavior, difficulty controlling actions, risky behaviors and impulsiveness, and psychological conditions such as paranoia, psychosis, ADHD, and manias, according to Microsoft Bing, because I just pulled it up quick, and those are legitimate concerns of dangers. But think about that. These are also some effects that we're seeing of people that have taken the jab and how we've talked about their behaviors have changed. Also, because of the amount of screen time that they have, this is telling me that that can account for a portion of that also, and put that, people that are addicted to their phones and computers and those fake dopamine hits in conjunction with those that have taken the jab, perfect storm, right? Especially when you compound that with the chemicals that are being sprayed onto us and the stuff in our foods that's probably decreasing our natural levels, maybe. More Momentum put out an article entitled Good Dopamine versus Bad Dopamine, How to Tell the Difference, on November 14th, 2023 by Will Moore. And in that article, he says, he asks, what is meant by good dopamine and bad dopamine? The term good versus bad dopamine is not a black and white scientific classification, but rather a simplified way to discuss how dopamine can influence our lives in both constructive and destructive manners. Good dopamine is often associated with experiences that contribute to long-term happiness and well-being. Whether it's the sense of accomplishment after finishing a challenging project, or the joy from spending quality time with loved ones, good dopamine encourages behaviors that align with our long-term goals, personal core values, and holistic balance. On the flip side, bad dopamine often comes from short-term pleasures, i.e. the computer, that might have long-term detrimental effects. Examples include the rush from consuming excessive sugar, or the instant gratification from mindless social media, there you go, scrolling. While these actions offer temporary pleasure, they don't contribute to a fulfilling and balanced life. LifeExtension.com did an article, How to Increase Dopamine Naturally, published May 2021 by Jessica Monge, Monge. And according to her article, she says that dopamine impacts your whole body health, not just how you think and feel. Researchers have found that dopamine receptors in peripheral areas of the body, away from the central nervous system, which demonstrates that this neurotransmitter also influences blood flow and renal activity. Also, if you're wondering, because I'm sure you are, how do I know? Do I have too much, too little, too good, too bad? It's a simple urine test, and her article states that as well. So, not a big deal to find out How do we get good natural dopamine? The first thing I recommend to people is being in a state of meditation and mindfulness, turning off the technology, getting away from the computer. And if you find, as most of us probably do in all reality, have some sort of addiction to websites, let's say, or games, take a break, get away from it. Do a week and then progress to a month, whatever works for you, but get away from the computer and complete small tasks, meaningful tasks. Like even if it's just, I cleaned my kitchen today, that'll give you a natural boost of dopamine when you've completed a task. Eat foods that are rich in amino acids. Consistent sleep patterns are really good for that too. And I am going to admit right here and now that I'm not the best person for that. And it's something that I strive to work on in myself. Get out in nature and let nature provide natural dopamine boosts. Her article suggests to eat foods high in protein like poultry, eggs, dairy, and legumes. Because of their high protein content, these foods are rich in tyrosine and phenylalanine, which are two amino acids used to produce dopamine. Choosing your nutrients wisely, boosting your mood with probiotics, get your body moving. Exercise is huge for dopamine, and she suggests that as well. Catch your Z's again. She suggests listening to music, but we have to be careful of the hertzes, and also to clear the mind to boost, which we talked about. Optimal Living Dynamics website suggests stimulating your vagus nerve, and you can do that. They have a machine that they're offering or they're recommending for you to use to do that. But essentially, your vagal tone can be measured by tracking certain biological processes such as your heart rate, your breathing rate, and your heart rate variability. When your heart rate variability is high, your vagal tone is also high. They're correlated with each other according to that article. And again, there are different devices that you can research to buy for that should you be interested in taking that route. Definitely, along with getting outside, get your sunlight, which is a natural way to produce. Take your vitamin D. Be Brain Fit has an article that also gives you some more downsides to having low dopamine and some causes, which I thought were interesting. I just wanted to share quickly. Some of these we may have covered, but check this out. This was quite interesting to me. Dopamine deficiency symptoms: apathy, engaging in self-destructive behaviors, especially addictions, fatigue, hopelessness, inability to complete tasks, inability to concentrate, inability to connect with others, inability to feel pleasure, lack of motivation, lack of libido, low libido, memory loss, mood swings, procrastination, and sleep problems. Also, and some of this is repeated as I said, numerous psychiatric disorders including depression, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, schizophrenia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and addictions of all kinds. They also cite poor nutrition and underlying health conditions like bipolar disorder, chronic inflammation, depression, hormone imbalance, obesity, Parkinson's and schizophrenia again, substance abuse again, and thyroid disorders. Some of the drugs that you may be taking to treat some of those disorders could be known as dopamine antagonists, and the article said two main types of drugs that are antagonists are antipsychotic drugs for schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, major depressive disorder, and antiemetic drugs for nausea and vomiting, as well as recreational drugs. The article says chronic adversity, long-term exposure to extreme adversity can lower dopamine production. Examples include poverty, grief, domestic violence, or social discrimination. So, traumatic childhood, suffering abuse, living with an addict, and, there it is, electromagnetic radiation from your phones. It says that all potentially addictive substances and behaviors, including caffeine, sugar, recreational drugs, video games, cell phone use, online porn, shopping, gambling, pursuit of power, and thrill-seeking, flood the brain with unnaturally high levels of dopamine. I hope you all enjoyed tonight's show as much as I have, and research other ways to naturally increase your dopamine levels. And I'm going to finish tonight's show a little differently with a short clip of a song, tongue-in-cheek, for the way the world seems to be going nowadays and for the way that some of us are made to feel sometimes. Have a great night, folks. We'll see you next week. Love you all. Bye.